Awesome, guys. Well, hey, we're so excited to see everybody. How many people are excited about our new series? Oh, come on, guys. How many people are excited about our new series? Awesome. Well, guys, as I shared with you, we're in a new series. Oh, cool. Thank you. Hey, that's a special gift for me. Boom. Awesome. Well, guys, we're starting a new series tonight. And you know, one reason, because I feel like, you know what, as many of us grow in our relationship with Jesus, we have to learn more about a relationship. Everybody say learn. Guys, here's the thing. You know, I know that you come from school and you say, man, I've had to learn all day. Why do I have to learn more? Well, here's the thing, guys. How many people know that, and hey, just go ahead and raise your hand anyways. Yes, education is important. Go ahead and say, yes, it is important. Oh, yes, that was exciting. But here's the thing, though. How many people know that things that affect our eternity are very important? Things that affect our eternity are very important. And here's the thing, guys. Tonight, we're going to get into a topic that affects your relationship with God. And we're going to look at the topic of heart of worship. Now, I want to ask you guys real quick, who can tell me what is worship even? What is worship? I want to see some hands. What is worship? Yes, ma'am. It's praising God. That's good. All right. I want to hear some different definitions of what is worship. Yes, sir. Giving back to God. That's good. Shh. All right. What is worship? Total surrender. That's good. Let me hear one more. What is worship? What is worship to you? Anybody else, guys? What is a definition of worship to you? Yes, sir. It could be in the form of devotion. Yes, that's good. We'll do one more right here. Praising the Lord. This is good, guys. Well, here's the thing. When we come into this, when we come into our service right here, we often call this a worship service. Everybody say worship service. But here's the thing, guys. I've been thinking about that. And yes, when we come together in a service, we do worship, don't we? Is that true? How many people can say that when we come into these services, we strive to worship God? But I've noticed something. Guys, if this is the only time throughout the week that you worship, if this is the only place in life that you come to worship, guys, we have missed out on the total meaning of what true worship is, especially biblical worship. And here's the thing, guys. Many of us, we just haven't ever learned what real worship is. Many of us, we've heard that it's singing a song. Many of us, we've heard it's that time whenever it's a special time and you just begin to talk to God about who He is and all that stuff. Well, our goal in this series, guys, is to help you figure out what is worship. So this first message that we're going to look at in our series of Heart of Worship, we've got to even figure out what is worship. Now, let's look at the definition of worship right here. We've sort of made it simple right here. The definition of worship is worth-ship. Worth-ship. What worship is, whenever you look at the very definition of what it is, you break it down into all the different meanings. When people use the term worship, it's giving worth to something. Everybody say worth. You got to, come on, you got to have a little bit of that. Come on, worth. There you go, worth. It's looking at something and saying, you know what? You're valuable to me. I tell you what, how many people in here have like fancy phones? Anybody in here have an iPhone? Can I borrow your iPhone for a minute? Wait, shh. Now, what would you do right now? And I would not do this because you're so awesome. I couldn't do that to you. But what would you do if I said, hey, I'm fixing to take your phone and I'm going to smash it on this corner? Cry. Wait, shh. Listen up. Shh. What would you do? I would cry. He would probably cry. I mean, why?
Because that's like my life.
So this is valuable to you. It's worth something to you. So here's the thing. He is willing to sacrifice all kinds of things so that He can take care of that phone. What are some other things, guys, that are valuable to you? Let me see some hands. Let me see some hands. What are things? Camille? Your friends. Yes. Awesome. Let's look right here. Kinley? Your parents. Yes, ma'am. Let's look over here for just a second. Bailey? Family. Good. Okay. So here's the thing. Shh. In the midst of all these things, Guys, I want you to hear this. Everybody look right here. Shh. So when you look at something as valuable, to a degree, you worship it. Why? Because you're giving worth to it and because you are willing to make sacrifices to that thing. Now the question is this. When we're looking at worship to God, how is He falling in the rankings? You know, guys, in life, we put a lot of things, I would say this, we put a lot of worth to things. Friendships, vehicles, phones, family, and all that stuff. But one thing that we've got to ask ourselves is, who is really top dog in my life? Who is it that no matter what, who is it I'm going to give the most worship to? Who is worth the most to me? And here's the thing, guys. God told us, do not worship any other gods. Do not worship any other gods. Now, here's the thing. I know that many of us wouldn't necessarily look at our iPhones or maybe look at our vehicles or our families or friends and say, well, hey, you're a god. But here's the thing. Many of us, we give those relationships or those objects so much worth. Everybody say worth? Worth. Come on, guys. Everybody say worth? Worth. We give them so much worth that, you know what? Many times we worship them more than we worship God. So here's the thing, guys. When you think of worshiping God, so many times we narrow it down to singing songs. Now, I'm going to say this. I am super proud of our worship band. I mean, guys, I have watched, and we now have a completely student-led worship band. Let's give them a little bit of attention. Now, I think they do a great job. Now, here's the thing. I know that all of our guys that just made it onto the worship band, that just auditioned and made it, they're actually going to start practicing this Sunday, so we're excited for them too. But as great as they are and as much as I appreciate them, guys, worship is not just about singing songs. So I want to go ahead and, for many of us, that blows our minds, because when we think about worship God, we think of worship music, don't we? We think of those songs like Forever. We think of those awesome songs. I mean, so many songs that help us to connect with God. But here's the thing, guys, I want to tell you tonight. Worship is so much more than singing a song. Worship is so much more than just singing songs to God. And here's the thing, tonight, I want to share with you what is real worship. What does it take to get to a place where I'm worshiping God? Because here's the thing, guys. Just singing a song out to God, that doesn't always qualify as worship. Because here's the thing. If just singing a song qualified as worship, you know what? People worship at Justin Bieber concerts. People worship at Rihanna concerts. People worship at all these different things. So here's the thing, guys. Shh. Now, here's the thing. I'll go ahead and say it. There are some songs that I do like. You know what? Go ahead and throw a rock at me if you want to. Justin Bieber does have some pretty cool songs. But here's the thing, guys. Shh. Here's the thing. I would hate it that, you know what, if God were to call me to heaven today and He were to look at me and say, you know what, Ori, you gave more attention to your favorite artist. You gave more attention to your favorite objects. You gave attention more to your favorite friends than you even gave to me. Think about this, guys. What is worship? What is real worship? We say that we worship God, but guys, what is it in your life that you are giving the most worth to? Because we've got to get to this whole thing of, listen, we say we worship God, but I want to ask you, in looking at this definition of worship is worth-ship, what are you actually worshiping in this life? Because many of us, when we come into these church services right here, we have to have somebody beg us to come up and just lift our hands. Many times we have to have people, come on guys, let's just press in. Let's just press in just a little bit further. Guys, if you really want to grow closer to God tonight, will you just lift your hands? To where I'm going to say this, worship, guys, it's a lifestyle. It is something that, you know what, worship is just as powerful out there as it is in here. So tonight, if you can say, Pastor Ori, I want to figure out what real worship for God is. I want to know what this is really about. We're going to talk about 3 elements, and don't click to that next slide yet. But here's the reason I want to look at this. I've shared this story before, but there was a church. How many people have ever heard of Matt Redman? Have y'all ever heard of Matt Redman? If you haven't, he is a Christian music artist, and he wrote a song called The Heart of Worship. How many people have ever heard that song? I'm coming back to the heart of worship, where it's all about you. Well, here's the thing. I want to share with you guys why Matt Redman wrote that song. They were in a church, actually, that was exploding. They were growing really fast. And as a matter of fact, when they got in their services, guys, it was high energy. They had the quality musicians, professional musicians. They had the lights. They had everything. Man, the place was thumping whenever they would lead the worship. But what would happen, guys, is the pastor would come in, and it was just a big concert. Guys, whenever they came into church, it wasn't church. It was just a big entertainment fest. So one day, the pastor came in and said, listen, things are fixing to change. If this is the church, if this is really going to be the place where we come together and we worship God, we're going to start putting our attention back on God. So you know what he did, guys? He took all the fancy lighting out. He took all of the instruments, all the fancy stuff, and he said, guys, we're getting rid of it. He said, you know what? If the only reason people are coming to church is to be entertained, we're fixing to get their attention, because this is not about just making somebody feel good or just entertaining people. This has got to be all about God. And students, I'm going to tell you this. Here in Loxley, students, we've got to make sure that everything stays about God. Well, here's the thing. Matt Redman, the worship leader, think about this, guys. Just imagine you're the worship leader in that church, and all of a sudden your pastor says, guess what? I'm taking all your lights away. I'm taking all your fog machines away. I'm taking all your instruments away. If we are going to have songs, you know what? You can do it a cappella, just the voices. Because here's the thing. We've got to learn how to connect with God again. So this is what happened. They came into service that next week, and most people didn't believe the pastor. It's like, hey, I don't think he's really going to do it. If he does that, man, people's going to quit coming to our church. If they take all the lights away, it's just not going to be cool anymore. Well, what happened? They came, and guess what, guys? The stage lights weren't there. The instruments weren't there. And when they got to the worship portion, people started singing with just the voices. And at first, it was awkward. Everybody say awkward. Awkward. It was awkward. But you know what? They made it through. Pastor preached his message. People started connecting with God. The next week, they were like, you know what? Hey, surely this week, they're going to bring the lights back. They're going to bring back the fog machine. They're going to bring back the drums and all the guitars and stuff. No. They came back. The worship leader gets up there and says, okay, it's time to sing again. And everybody's like, okay. And they started worshiping again. And you know what, guys? This went on for weeks. No instruments, no lights, no fog machines. And finally, something happened in their church. When it came time for the worship time, it was really worship. People realize that, you know what, to connect with God, we don't have to always have the guitar. We don't have to have the lights fading. We don't have to have the fog machine. You can really begin to connect with God without all the stuff. Now, here's the thing. This stuff is fun, and it really does help set a mood. But you know what, guys? We've got to realize in worship, you don't have to have all the equipment. God is still God, and He's still there. And in the midst of that, Matt Redman said, you know what? We're coming back to the heart of worship. When the music fades and all this stuff is gone, you know what? God, you're still there, and we can worship you even more powerful. So tonight, guys, I'm not going to take the lights away, but you know what? If we ever had to, I would. I'm not going to take the instruments away, but you know what? If we have to, we will. Tonight, it is my desire as your student pastor, I want each and every one of us to know what real worship is. And tonight, we're going to talk about what is worship. Well, there's 3 elements to it. When you look in the Bible, any word that has something to do with worship, when you go back to the Hebrew and the Greek, when you begin to divide it up, there's 3 themes that really define what worship really is. The first one is this. Number 1, an element of true worship is humility. Humility is realizing how great God is and how low we really are. Realize this. Humility is this. Realizing how great God is and how low we really are. Now, realize this. This is not looking at yourself and saying, I'm a loser, I'm horrible, I'm not worth anything. But what it's getting to a place is realizing how awesome God is. And how realizing, guys, we really don't compare to that. So many of us, we've got it stuck in our head that we're so good, we're so talented, we're so strong that we don't need God. You know how I know that? Because, guys, when life's going good, so many people tend to forget about God. Would anybody agree with me on that? How many times has that happened to us? When life is going good, we forget about God and how much we need Him. But here's the thing. When life starts getting tough, all of a sudden, we start realizing, God, I'm not as big as I thought I was. I'm not as strong as I thought I was. I'm not as popular as I thought I was. God, I thought I was popular, but here's the thing. I'm going through the worst time and I still feel alone. Humility is realizing that, you know what? I'm not as big as I always think I am. Think about this, guys. In Isaiah 64:6, he actually says this really well. And you're going to look at this and it's like, man, that sort of hurts even talking about that. But look at this. He says, we are all infected and impure with sin. When we display our righteous deeds, they're nothing but filthy rags. Those things when we think that, hey, I did this, so this makes me a super Christian. Really, guys, in the long run of things, it doesn't compare to what Jesus has done for us. Like autumn leaves, we wither and fall, and our sins sweep us away like the wind. Now notice this, when I'm talking about humility, guys, I'm not trying to destroy your confidence. You need to realize who you are in God, but at the same time, you need to realize who you are in God. We need to realize that God created each and every one of us, and the only way that we're where we're at is because God allowed you to be there. I want you to think about this, guys. Everybody raise your right hand for just a second. If you're still with me, clap one time. Okay, now think about this. I want you to think about this. Think about some of your greatest accomplishments. Think of something that whenever you can look back and say, I'm proud of. This is something that I did, and I'm proud that I got to do that. Maybe some of you made a team that you wanted to try out for. Maybe some of you won an award that you got to be a part. Maybe you got a promotion at work, or maybe you got to be a part of something awesome. Think about this. The only reason you got to do that is because God allowed you to be there. Do you realize that, students? Every good thing we have comes from God. Yes, you may be super talented, but here's the thing. If God were to just completely take His hands off of you, you know what? We wouldn't be near as awesome as we think we are. So number one, guys, if we want true worship, we've got to have some humility and saying, listen, I'm not all that. I'm not perfect. But number two, you've got to mix it with this. You can't tear yourself down. You've got to have it a mix with this. Reverence. And this is something, guys, that, you know, the more we begin to learn about God, you can actually develop. Reverence is this. It's a respecting fear of someone. Think about this. Shh. It's a respecting fear. You respect so much that you know what? You know that you don't want to cross them. Think about this, guys. I want you to think about someone who you have a lot of respect for. It may be a dad, it may be a teacher, it may be a family member, it may even be just somebody in your life that you have a lot of respect for. Now, I want to ask you guys real quick, think of somebody that you have a lot of respect for. Are there any of those people that you can say, you know what, I actually do have a little bit of fear of them because I don't want to disappoint them? Can anybody think? Come on, let me see some hands. You can say, you know what, I respect those people so much that, you know what, I'm sort of afraid to disappoint them. And here's the thing, guys. That doesn't mean that you're so afraid of them that you don't have a relationship with them, but it's one of those things that, you know what, you respect them so much that you're afraid to let them down. Does this make sense to you, students? Does this make sense? Well, here's the thing. In worship, it's not only acknowledging, God, I'm not all that I need to be. I'm not big and bad and perfect, God. I'm nothing without you. It's also saying, God, I may not be everything, but God, you are everything. Think about this, students. So many of us, we're really good at saying, God, I'm not perfect. I can't always do it. But here's the thing. Worship is whenever you start saying, God, I'm not perfect, but God, you can help me to be better. Humility is saying, God, there's times when I'm weak, but it begins to be worship whenever you say, God, I'm weak, but with you, I can be strong. Worship is this, looking and saying, God, yes, I've made a lot of mistakes, but it begins to be reverence whenever you say, God, I know that you've got all power and you can help me have a new life. Guys, it is that point when you stop tearing yourself down so much and you begin to say, God, I can do all things through you. You begin to look at God and say, yes, God, you are in charge. Students, there's some of you here tonight that, you know what, maybe your family is a wreck. There may be some of you right now that you see your parents fight, that it may seem like your parents are even on the verge of divorce. And you know what? Here's the thing. In the midst of that stuff, I challenge you guys, begin to just say, God, I trust in you. God, I may not be able to control what's going on with my parents, but God, you are God Almighty, and I know that no matter what, you're going to take care of me. You're going to guide me through every step. You're going to keep me safe. Students, here's the thing. If you want real worship, you got to look and say, what am I giving worth to? You know what? Just like I took his phone just a minute ago. Can I borrow your phone one more time? Look at this. When I take it away from him, he wants it. He realizes that there are some things that he cannot do without this phone. Does that make sense to you guys? In other words, this has worth. So what does he do? There's probably a lot of things that if I were to really try and run and take his phone away, he would probably just do whatever he could to get his phone back. Guys, worship is saying this. I'm not going to just, hey, listen, from 7 a.m. to 7:05, God, I'm just going to give you this little bit of time. Yes, you're worthy of about 5 minutes, but God, I'm going to give you that 5 minutes. Why? Just because I've got to. That's not showing a lot of worth to God. But this is what real worth is. God, I realize that if I don't have you, I'm nothing. There's things I can't do. God, I know you created me for greatness, but God, if I don't have you, I don't have anything. Is this making sense to you, students? This is what real worship is. It's looking and saying, God, I'm not just going to spend just 10 minutes with you. Now, students, realize this. I'm not saying you walk around all day saying, God, you're worthy. God, you're awesome. Your teachers will get on to you for that. Why? Because you've actually got to pay attention at school. But you know what, guys? Worship is so much more than just singing a song. Yes, I love to sing some of these songs. Actually, here in just a minute, I'm going to have the worship band just come back up here, and we're going to sing through Forever one more time. Because we're going to learn what real worship is. It's not just singing some lyrics. It's realizing, God, I'm nothing without you. And number two, God, you're everything. And actually, as the praise band's coming to set up, number three, an element of true worship is this: service. An element of true worship is service. Students, I want you to realize this, and I want you to look at me. And, hey, they're okay, they're going to set up. But I want you to look at me and realize this. When you begin to realize and you become truly humble and you say, God, I'm nothing without you. But number two, God, with you, I can do all things. You can't help but do something. Everybody say, do something. Do something. Come on, students. Everybody say, do something. Have you ever looked at somebody that, man, one day they got up and did something great for God? How many of y'all have ever seen a student that just all of a sudden out of nowhere, they got up and did something great for God? Come on, guys. Hey, listen to me. We're about to finish up right here. How many of you have been in a moment where, you know what? You saw a student or you saw one of your peers and they began to connect with God, and all of a sudden one day they just did something you never would have dreamed they would do. Do you want to know why? One day, they didn't just wake up one day and say, you know what, I'm going to do something for God. What happened is they started getting a real picture of what worship to God is. Guys, here's the thing. I want you to look at me right here. When you begin to look, when I start looking back at what all God has brought me through, when I begin to look and see all the mistakes I made, all the stupid mistakes I made, all the bad decisions I've made, I can't help but say, you know what, God? I'm not perfect. God, really? in comparison to a lot of people, there's a lot of people that are better people than me. But God, here's the awesome thing. I respect you, God. God, you're amazing. And I believe, God, that if I will give my whole heart to you, you can use a pathetic person like me. And here's the awesome thing, guys. When I begin to worship God through everything I do, I can't help but want to do something for Him. You don't know, students, why I go to 4 schools a week? I get to go, here's the thing, I get to go to Central Baldwin Middle School, Central Christian School, Robertsdale High School, Faulkner State Community College. I get to do that every week. And you don't know why? Yes, you got some beautiful faces, but you know what? It's not just for that. It's because God has done so much in me, and I want you guys to be able to experience what God is really all about. And I'm going to tell you, students, some of you, you've been in a place, God, if I can just connect with you. God, if I can just make that connection with you one more time, God, Lord, I'll do something. Well, tonight's your night, students. I want to ask if they will, back in the media booth, if they'll just dim these lights for just a minute, because I want this to be a very intimate moment. I want to ask you guys here in the house. I want you to hear, I've got a verse that I didn't get to read, and I want to share this with you. It's in Psalm 8 and 3. They're going to pull that up for you. The psalmist said this, and I want you to begin to think of how great God is as you hear this. He said, when I look at the night sky and I see the work of your fingers, God, the moon and the stars you set in place, what are mere mortals that you should think about them? Human beings that you should care for them. I don't know about you guys, but when I look at the stars, when I can look and see that, you know what, God created every one of those. God created every single star. He created the moon. He created the sun. I'll start thinking, God, how could somebody so great care about somebody so little like me? Let me bring it a little bit closer to home right here. Guys, one of my favorite places to go in the world is the beach. But here's the thing. It's not to necessarily go and get a tan. It's not necessarily to go and just dive in the ocean. But one thing I like to do, I love to just get on the shore, and I love to look at the ocean. I love to listen to the water come in. You don't know why? Because guys, when I sit at the ocean, I can look as far as I can that way and far as I can that way. And I realize how massive it is, how powerful it is. How, you know what? I could get out there in the ocean and it could throw me all around. But you know what I realize, students? As great as the ocean is, and as powerful as it is, God's in control of it. And I realize this. If that same God who's in control of the ocean, that same God who created the stars, the moon, the sun, and all those things, He is the same person that loved me. Out of billions of people, He loved me so much that He sent His Son Jesus to die on the cross. Guys, I cannot help but worship Him. I can't help but, you know what, sing songs to Him, but also when I wake up, I can't help but just say, God, you know what, I'm not worthy of you, but you are awesome, so therefore, I'm going to live for you today. Students, worship is a lifestyle. It's more than a song. It's more than a little dance. It's more than an entertainment portion. It is a lifestyle where we realize how small we really are and how great God is. And tonight, here's my desire. It's not for you to get goosebumps. It's not for you just to simply leave here feeling good. I would like for tonight, you can say, if you came here and you said, Pastor Ori, I don't have a relationship with God. I would love it if when you leave here, you can say, I have begun a relationship with the God of all heaven and the God of all earth. I'm going to ask you if you'll just bow your heads with me for just a minute. Lord, I thank you for tonight. I thank you for everything that you've done. And I'm praying, God, that you will do something tonight that only you can do. Lord, I'm praying that, God, if there's people here that may not know you, I pray, Father, that you would just allow your love to enter into their life. Help them to realize that, yes, God, we have all sinned. We have all disappointed you in one way or another. But, God, you loved us so much that you sent Jesus to die for our sins so that we can be forgiven and have a new life with you. We can have a relationship with you. God, I pray you'd open our hearts to connect with you tonight in a way we've never done it before. In the name of Jesus, we pray. Amen. With your head still bowed, I want to ask you this. Is there someone here tonight that can say, Pastor Ori, I know we talk about worship. I know we talk about humbling ourselves before God and realizing how great God is. But Pastor Ori, tonight, I don't even know God. I've never given my life to Him. Pastor Ori, as a matter of fact, I've made a lot of mistakes. And I don't see how God could even forgive me. I want to tell you this. Tonight, as long as you're still living and breathing, God has given you a chance to get this life right. He loves you. He knows everything about you. And here's the awesome thing. Tonight, He's given you a chance to begin a relationship with Him. If that's you and you can say, Pastor Ori, tonight, I want to start a relationship with God. If that's you and you can say, Pastor Ori, I want to start that relationship with God, I want to ask you just to lift your hand right where you're at. Amen. I see that hand. Anybody else? Amen. I see that. Amen. Maybe you can say, Pastor Ori, I've given my life to God before, but you know what? It's never been really a relationship. And tonight, I want to make it more than just a Sunday or Wednesday thing. I want to give my life fully to God. If that's you, I just want to ask you to lift your hand. Amen. Well, tonight, students, we want to give you a chance to get to know the awesome God who we talk about worshiping. If that's you, you say, Pastor Ori, tonight, I want to give my life to God. I want to ask Him to forgive me of my sins. And from here on out, I want to live for Him. I want to ask if you will, just come join me down here in the altar. We want to pray for you. We'll have some adults and we'll have some students to pray with you. But if that's you, I want to ask you just to make your move now. If that's you and you raise your hand and you say, Pastor Ori, I need to start a relationship with God tonight. Please don't wait on anybody else. Make your move now. There we go. Somebody's already moved. Guys, is there anybody else that you can say, Pastor Ori, maybe you've given your life to Him before. Hey, I want to invite you to, and you can say, hey, I just need to reconnect with God. Come join us. If I can have my adults in the room and also my student leadership team, guys with guys, girls with girls. Anyone else too, if you believe just in the power of prayer. And this is what we want to do. As you're praying down here, guys, I want you to begin to just connect with God. My adults, I want to ask you if you will just begin to talk to these guys, see what you can pray with them about. Everyone else in the room back here, maybe you're not coming down. I want to ask you guys just to stand up with me for a minute. Everybody else, there we go. Now here's the thing, guys. This service isn't over, because if we're going to get back to the heart of worship, listen up. If we're going to get back to the heart of worship, we've got to start using our worship muscles. We've got to start exercising that. So tonight, what I want to challenge you to do, if you have to, get away from somebody that may distract you. But tonight, I want you to begin to worship like real biblical worship. What that is realizing that, you know what? Humbling yourself, saying, God, I'm not everything I need, but God, you are awesome and you are everything I need. These guys are going to lead us in worship. I want to invite you guys, let's just spend some time in worship. Is that cool? Awesome. Let's begin. If you guys can go ahead and lead us in worship.